Welcome to Signal's Continuous Identity Sessions, where we connect the brightest minds in identity with the strategies and real-world approaches that make IAM work better. I'm your host and continuously curious technology, security, and identity nerd, Dustin Avol. In each session, we're sitting down with people building, managing identity at enterprise scale, the ones who've figured out how to eliminate bottlenecks, reduce manual work, and implement automation that actually improves security without slowing down the business. We call them the best of the best. And today we are honored to have one of the best. And we're focused on something that's fundamentally reshaping how identity needs to work. There's a shift from human speed provisioning to machine speed authorization. If you've ever watched your provisioning queue pile up while APIs, automation, and even AI agents are making thousands of access requests that can't wait for tickets to be processed, you know exactly what we're talking about. Your identity program was built for a world where humans requested access and then humans approved it. But that's not the world we're operating in anymore. We're joined by Sean Odell, co-chair of the Shared Signals Working Group at the OpenID Foundation. Sean has managed identity at a massive scale, the kind of scale where you can't just throw more people at the problem. You have to fundamentally rethink how identity systems operate. Now he's helping to build standards that let identity information flow across enterprises in real time, so access decisions can actually keep pace with modern business operations. Implementing continuous identity at a company with hundreds of thousands of workers or even millions of customers, it's not just about technology, it's about proving value every step of the way. And a reminder for those joining us live, we're going to try to tackle as many questions as we can throughout the show. We'll follow up personally with everyone that we don't have time for today. But let's get to it. Sean, welcome. Thank you. What's new?
Pleasure to be here. A lot. This continuous identity thing starting to take off. I think after the last Identiverse in Vegas, it really took off. I got a lot of feedback from the keynote where Andrew and I were on stage. My LinkedIn looks like I gave up pretty much. It's pretty bad. It's kind of funny how it evolved from shared signals to this thing Otto and I are working on called the continuous security paradigm, which is still a thing. But then now it's like continuous identity. And it's even funnier how Andy in his keynote, not having communicated or worked together, we came up with the same idea of like Lego bricks and how to get started with it, which is just hilarious. So doing more writing and more identity in depth stuff with some practitioners on many platforms now. There's a lot of hunger afterwards for, this is great, love the marketecture. Feel free to use that term. It's not trademark. Just put the virtual quarter in the bucket every time you use it. So there's a hunger for that. And I'm very much seeing I think we, not just me, but we are seeing a shift into data being fundamental more so now in the workforce. Because in consumer, how you monetize, how you make money. But on the workforce side, it's like, oh, it's just data. But we're seeing a huge pull for that. And then always the fun part, balancing kids with identity is always fun. So the victim is always sleep. I always lose on that part. So that's totally okay. Thankfully, we have glasses to hide the line. So
well, plus you just got an hour back, right? We turned the clocks back. So now we're all good all of a sudden, right?
Yeah. It only worked that way.
Yeah. And the kids definitely respond quickly to that hour, right? They just snap right to it. I wish. You mentioned a little bit about the continuous identity keynote at Identiverse. You really helped kind of coin the term and crystallize this concept that's really taking off. So I guess maybe we owe you a lot more than that virtual quarter in the bucket. So thanks for that. It really is catching on. You can see from the continuous identity sessions here. But before we dive in, you mentioned some of the co-chairing. Can you give folks more of a sense of what you do with the OpenID Foundation and the work that's going on with the Shared Signals Working Group?
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. Run the working group sessions weekly with a bunch of practitioners and vendors and collaborators that want to help make this thing a reality. So I co-chair with Avol and now the famous Mike Kaiser. I want to say a special thanks to Shane Meal for helping out a lot from Cisco. He's great, fantastic. Shared Signals Framework and CAPE and Risk, those are the profiles on top of that framework, which we'll get to later on, it's now ratified as V1. So that is a huge accomplishment. So thumbs up there. We are moving forward with a lot more work that's needed, so it isn't just over and done. It's just more about hearing back from our customers and implementers' feedback with the interoperability stuff we saw at Authenticate and other sessions. It's really coming along. Writing a lot of blog posts about it that I owe a lot of people attention to, so that's going to probably be in the next few weeks doing that. Responsibility that I mainly have is to help drive interoperability across vendors and platforms, and education with Q&A from all interested parties. But it's so much fun in those sessions. The use cases you hear, you never would have thought in a million years that you needed it to do, pulling a rabbit out of a hat, for example. You never would have heard that, but you only get that through collaboration and through partnership. So it's been so much fun.
Yeah, the work you guys are doing is amazing and growing in leaps and bounds. But you mentioned a little bit about the how, and we like to focus a lot of the practical stuff. It's not just about theoretical and architecture. So you have obviously managed identity at some seriously massive scales. For folks that don't know you yet, maybe we could talk a little bit about the kinds of challenges you've been solving day to day.
Tons. So I talked to a lot of people about random IAM things, and the one concept I keep hearing is that pushing the cutting edge of identity engineering, pushing it. So security, scalability, user experience. Nice little triangle, but it has to be equilateral. It can't be obtuse, isosceles. Has to be equal. That is the hugest thing. Is balancing that is just, it keeps you up at night. It does. So the domains I deal in are very complex. They traverse different trust models, business needs, you name it. You name the area of interest, I have to touch it. Global scale must be measured in milliseconds, and access must be granular to the nth degree. I don't want to say a rarity, but I think that you see less of this than you do more in the industry. But I have dual responsibilities, and I traverse consumer and workforce. So consumers in the millions, workforce is in the hundreds of thousands. Same problem space, just different ways to tackle it. And I really, the things I'm solving right now are, there's a lot, but just to hit like the big 3 or 4, otherwise we could be here for like 4 hours. Data, orchestration, zero trust, session management, and moving more towards event-driven identity. Embracing traditional IAM systems and making them appliances. You'll figure that out later in this talk. But can't tell you enough that zero standing privilege, verifying identities continuously, revoking access in real time, really looking at what a workforce identity data platform is and how to get your data clean-ish to make business and security decisions, and identity lifecycle automation. Just a few things.
Yeah, just a few. But I heard some.
That's why the hair is like always up. Sorry,
I heard
Dustin,
some really I heard some really key and kind of hot button terms. The zero standing privilege, obviously continuously, real time. This kind of topic of real time and machine speed versus human speed. When you're talking with your own or other enterprise IAM teams, how do you explain the fundamental difference about environments that they're managing today versus just a few years ago? Are there real world examples you can share, or things that help you like break down, or you've seen break down because they just couldn't keep up?
Yeah, a lot of the things that we're talking about now is the way I break it down is it's more around if this then that. Basic easy concepts like if this happens then this. So usually would be like person opens up a ticket, person gets a ticket, hits the button, everyone has access, yay. That doesn't exist anymore. Some of the requests you get are like, my service account needs to talk to this system to do X. How do you scale that when you have end services and end systems? So workloads needing access to things, it's a thing. Like the whole AI agents, AI thing is huge. So the way I've explained it is that nothing's binary anymore. It's like a contextual tree. You need context, like provisioning, for example. Like I always go back to the same example when you come in machine speed versus human speed. Based on some context, I may need access to these 4 systems, but not this one. So that's no longer human speak, that's context. So if I have a role in an ITSM platform, I need 50 accounts because that's just the state of the union of your company, for example, but I don't need 10. So it's a provisioning is probably the easiest thing to break down where I can't keep up, because if you did it that way, if I had 20 service accounts and I automated my ticket creation to a human being doing that, the cost to experience ratio would be way too high, and your SLAs would be way too low. High but low expectations, high SLAs. That's what I meant to say. So yeah. Same difference.
Yeah, absolutely. And we talked to in an earlier episode of Continuous Identity Sessions, we talked to Felix Gatkins, who formerly was a Gartner analyst, about non-human identities and machine identities. And, we're talking more about AI agents and automations. And like you're saying, these aren't always humans logging in. They're systems that are making decisions and then taking actions continuously, constantly. How does that fundamentally break these traditional models in identity?
Yeah, and another good example, it's a Felix thing brought by my brainwave. So it's more of there's automations being done in SaaS systems, and you can pick your SaaS system of choice, but system A must talk to system B for data and context. That's a thing. There's no more human beings. It's more machine level. It's whether you ingest data or make decisions. It's no longer human to human. It's exponential, and no matter how you tackle this, human beings are going to lose in the scalability problem. You just can't scale unless we figured out how to clone people, and I don't think we have yet. So I hope not, at least.
That'd be a good episode.
Yeah, it would be.
There's always a follow-up to these questions, Sean, which is like, great. How do I get started? What should I focus on first when I'm looking at attacking this new world of automation and identity and really fixing it or addressing it?
I think the way you have to fix it and adjust it is you have to look at identity as a fabric of signals that need to be dynamic, contextual, and composable. A lot of lovely buzzwords there. So what does that mean? Malleable to the business with context that you know what it means, and composable as in understandable to a system, right? That's how you could look at things. I think that's what you're asking. I think that's the way I would approach that for sure.
Yeah, I mean, taking it one step further, if I'm an identity leader, I'm a director, I lead a whole identity security team, and some of this is sounding familiar. Hey, yeah, we have these challenges. I don't know if it's worth addressing. Like, are there, pun intended here, are there signals that are happening that I can then look at and go, oh, I need to, there's gaps that are in my approach that I need to now take action on?
Yeah, the funny thing is you don't know what you don't know. And that's the best way to put it. And it sounds like a cliche and a cop out, but I'll get into it. Discovery is key. Just pick trust your gut and your instinct. If you hear from your customer base saying, man, we're not, insert word here, secure, our provisioning is slow. If you're spending so much money on fixing a privilege account or on IGA, tends to be where you should actually look. So a great example is look at a macro problem and size it down to a micro level and attack that micro problem, because 9 times out of 10, when you solve that one little problem, the pattern you discover could be reused to help look at 4 problems in a 10 problem space. So what does that mean? Okay, I'm a huge fan of this. I will say it till I'm blue in the face. I think privileged access management and privileged accounts are a manifested problem because we don't have the right controls or features in scope at most companies. Again, fun sentence. What does that mean? Tons of privileged accounts. I got to go buy something that costs lots of millions of dollars, and it just costs a lot of money to manage privileged accounts. When the problem keeps growing, you don't at least right size it or stop it. So how, again, a good approach here is, that's a challenge you have. How do you approach it? Data, funneling it through the right context, and doing some discovery on, okay, why do we keep provisioning fake numbers here? 30 accounts a minute for privilege access. Why? Technology can't solve this. It's people and process, right?
Mm.
So when you know the people and process problem, you can fix that with tech, which is the aim of what this is here. But until you have that holistic view of this is my problem, I think it's a problem, I should go tackle it. What are the signals you can look for?
Yep.
How many provisioning do you get a day for these end systems? And what should you do about it? Oh, maybe you just do that, but then on the back end, look for usage. Has it been used in X number of days? Disable it. And that's all risk signaling and context. And it's not that hard to accomplish without spending, and you don't have to spend like $100 million on it. This is just simple log data, analysis, deprovision. Then you grow it, baby steps. That's crawl, walk, run. That's a crawl phase. Maybe a walk is, okay, put some automation in place to just deactivate it. And then the run phase is ingest all your access logs and your request logs and your systems. And if you've seen no access in a number of days, turn it off. And if you need an auditing conversation, then you keep the accounts as ephemeral and turn them on and off whenever you need to, using a thing like an event hub or a thing like you can provision out of an event hub as well. Great question.
Well, you talked a little bit about provisioning tickets, and that's an area I just wanted to kind of hover over a little bit further, because when we talk about things like in this episode and in other episodes of taking identity past just being a cost center or a reactive motion, one of those legacy approaches or legacy kind of strategies, if you want to call it that, really tactics that have been kind of a pain, is that provisioning ticket backlog, right? That's what's thought of as this legacy identity. That's what they're doing. That's what they're responding to. It's still a pain point for a lot of teams. You started to allude to it, but I wanted to just kind of go a little bit deeper. Are you seeing that as a problem in efficiency, or is it one of those signals? Is it a symptom of something that's more fundamentally challenging?
Yeah, provisioning is a macro problem, and again, I'm a huge proponent of thinking about things a little bit differently. So I think of access management and provisioning as, to get access, you need provisioning. So if you solve provisioning for one area, likely you could tap into things. I'm huge on pattern-driven design. So fix it once, apply it in places. So I'm very passionate about provisioning and onboarding and the customer experience. Passionate about it. This comes back down to your data and what is being sourced for context. Is it done manually? Is it systemic? Is it data, or is it process? We talked about, right? So if we're talking tickets and human beings are just literally like button click, you could automate that, right?
Yeah.
Now, again, always subjective, because it's easy to sit here and just say, yeah, just automate it with some AI and slap a policy on it all day. Things are great, fantastic. Nope. 9 times out of 10, we don't live in that world, because the data is like a swamp versus a lake, or it's half accurate, or you can't rely on your source of data because it's just entered by a human being, or the data is just wrong. So I don't think it's an efficiency problem per se. I think it's more of a data problem. And a lot of companies, we're seeing that. A lot of companies that are seeing that now with their AI, like, oh, AI will fix everything. But our data is so fractured and old that when you ask it a basic question, like, how do I take a vacation? It's like, well, I can't help you. I got nothing, right? That's not a good thing. And this data hygiene is important if you want to start layering on automation and tools to help it out. Same with process and provisioning. If you know you need access to system X, and it's a clear delineated path of must have this, this, and that, aside from an approval, that's all you need. If you even need that, right? So the only human in the loop in provisioning should be like, yes, I approve the access, or a hiring manager should say yes, if needed. Again, easy example, but there's provisioning is like this big, and we're talking about it in the scope of this, but yeah, for sure.
Yeah, but we're looking for the easy examples so we can really boil this down, because there are so many theoretical, thought leadership sort of ideas, but we like to get practical. But speaking of that, of getting practical, there's always a security component to this too. And I know, hand in glove is security and identity. It feels like maybe some of the industry is just coming around to understand this, that we've been saying for a while in identity, that identity is security. It's the front lines, it's the perimeter, et cetera, whatever you want to put in there, but where are organizations maybe unknowingly creating risk for security because their identity systems aren't operating in real time?
It's gonna be a broken record. Provisioning and access. That's what it is. I operate under the model of I assume breach, so I just say my password is out there. I operate on that. That's why authorization and access are like the new. Figure that out now quickly. Most companies are getting to MFA, which is good. Stronger auth, which is fantastic. There's still things like phishing, and there's still human beings that just fall for it. It's just the way it's going to be, right? But over entitlement, like IGA's systems, they set a role and forget it. There's no continuous context there.
No kidding.
Standing access versus zero standing privilege for critical systems. I mean, do you really need access to manage DNS or AD all the time? Maybe, maybe not. Maybe 2 of you do versus 15. Who knows, right? So I'll have an diverse presentation I did for zero standing privilege up on my site after this that I'll share with you a link to. That way viewers can go check it out and use it for it's good for selling it, and it's also good for seeing how it's done. And it's not in the weeds technical, like you're like, I need the source to figure out what this word means. It's more like it's more practical, right? Provisioning. I mean, basic questions are like, I love asking the questions. It's always fun. Were all the accounts for the individuals deactivated? Maybe, maybe not. Tokens the user might have access to, like Jira, ServiceNow, privilege access. Is it there? Did the user or users have access to secrets that should have been rotated? So you're looking at one event that could touch 3 different systems, 3 different areas of IAM. That's insane risk. So if I leave a company and I know where the secret is to manage system X, probably should be rotated if you're not doing rotation, which catch 22, right? But privilege access wise, if you're like a high level SE or an engineer, you don't need that access anymore. You shouldn't have it, because like heaven forbid I left a company and then boomerang back, I still have that access as a different role. That's a problem. It really is, and it'll be an auditing nightmare as well too. And always the fun one for security is unknowingly creating risk because they can operate in real time is more around I'm going to say threat actors and tooling, and the context matters here. So this is going to sound Orwellian, but it's not meant to be that way in any way, shape, or form. But what's normal for a user to be doing on systems? Most PAM systems have this. They do session recording, right? If you know I'm on vacation, why am I logging into 30 systems? That's a problem.
Right.
You don't need to know what I'm doing. You need to know. It's not what am I doing in this system? What am I accessing and when and why, right? So did you happen to notice, for example, one user moving across all your systems in your IDP because they hijacked the token? That's a problem. But if we can operate in context in real time, it goes back to the question you asked me earlier. You don't know what you don't know. You just don't. That's why the continuous context matters. It really does.
Well, and just to sort of beat viewers or listeners over the head with it, even though we're not calling it out by name, a lot of the shared signals framework and CAPE and risk, this is what it's contributing to. I remember there was a Gartner session a couple of years ago, and I think Felix, who I just mentioned, was one of the presenters, and he was fond of saying something like, we've been really good at opening doors in identity and really bad at closing them. And so, you just talked about all that where, hey, you need access to this, great. You need access to that, great. And then you move roles or you get promoted or you continue to expand. And did anybody go back and make sure that your new role or your new, not even your role, your job need or your business justification is still requiring access to those things? Like it just hasn't been happening a whole lot. And that's, I think, my take, correct me if I'm wrong, but a lot of what shared signals talks about.
Yeah,
thumbs
absolutely.
Up.
Okay, I got you. Hang on. There you go.
I like the thumbs up. Yeah. Back to us here though. Okay. Continuous identity sessions. We talk about it in the sort of abstract or the title here for this session. Continuous identity, we're saying it's not optional anymore. It's a pretty strong statement. What has shifted to make this more of a requirement than just a nice to have that are leading indicators or bleeding edge companies are adopting?
Great question. Very strong statement. I agree with it. I like to start it off with a real world example. So I believe a lot of what we're doing in identity now is just traversing into the real world, if you will. Not to borrow a bad pun from Ready Player One, but kind of. Let's say your washing machine dies. It's dead. Call someone. They're like, hey, it's dead, warranty. You argue about money. You hate life. It's too expensive. Everything's $1,000 nowadays. Come fix my stuff. Okay, we're sending over Alex to come over to your house. Cool. He's coming tomorrow at noon. Alex shows up. Hey, I'm Alex. How do you know that? It's a badge, authentication, name tag, Alex, right? You know he's here to come to your house to fix your washing machine, right? Let him into your house. Access. Do you let him go into your room or your safe or your bedroom or upstairs or into your Star Wars Hall of Glory where all your crap is? No, you direct him to say, this is where you go and nowhere else. Authorization. Okay. You thank Alex, you pay him. Alex says tomorrow, hey, what's up, man? And I'm like, you're not going to my house. Why not? We're good. Transaction over. Alex goes to a different company. Let's say he's going to go do lawn control now. Hey, it's still Alex. You can't come in my house. All real world examples where Alex left the company, came back, didn't assume a role. Still Alex. Alex is Alex. But I like to tie that example together because continuous identity is hard to rationalize sometimes with so many IGA, PAM, authentication, SSO. There's real world examples that you can relate to, help mint things together. Now, question you had. It isn't optional anymore. I apparently said two good things at Identiverse that someone wrote down for me, so I borrowed them from this thing called the internet. The only thing constant is change. Like we just said, you get a green light once, and you're in. But real security requires constant reevaluation, context changes, threats evolve, identity must keep up. It's real. This shift is not just technical, it's existential. It really is. So make this as quick. I'm not trying to go deep into this, but this is like a 3-hour conversation if you want to have that, which I know we don't have 3 hours to talk about this. What changed? Remote work, SaaS, and cloud complexities. People can connect from everywhere on everything to do their jobs. Personal devices, cloud platforms, federated identities, bring your own identity. Most traditional IAM platforms authenticate you and you're static. They don't account for variable change. AI and machine speed operations, huge, big problems. Businesses are moving the needle for adoption for many reasons: cost, optimization, do more with less and faster, you name it, right? AI has also leveled the playing field for threat actors. So you have to almost operate on an assume breach mentality, like I mentioned earlier. Attackers use automation to do AI-generated phishing emails, which are pretty darn good. Cred stuffing to breach systems now can be low and slow where you won't detect it, or brute force. Whatever you give them, they're going to take. It's insane. And then the last thing is there's a lot of stuff happening with distributed environments now with business needs. There's so much change happening right now that identity is like operating in the 1900s. Bad example, but go with it for a second. For this to work, it has to become a living, breathing system that listens and adapts and responds. And anything less is a liability.
Yeah. I love, like you said, that's a lot to digest, and I appreciate it.
Yeah.
And I love the metaphor, the story about the repairman. It's something I use actually often with friends, family, sort of like other people that aren't in the industry that are wondering what's going on in the industry. What do you do for, what do you do at work all the time? Like, here, check this out, listen to this idea. And I'm wondering, given your role and your history, not just with the, kind of, again, shelving the working group for a second, you have experience with these large deployments. You've got to tell these stories, this type of business case. And so how do you take that deep level of technical understanding and sort of combine it with the business justification, not for access in this case, but more for funding for projects. Like, do you have any advice for folks around that?
PowerPoint and pictures. It's great. I mean, it sounds crazy, but you have to think beyond the scope of like, it would be so cool if we implemented blah or blah. It's like, that's great. That's where you geek out at. But to get there, you need to show the value and the need. You have to almost operate as a product owner / manager in some capacity here. So give you some example cases that help you get funded. First of all, rule of thumb: you never let a good incident go to waste. If there's an incident at your company, ride that until you can cash in on it. It's just it's not my metaphor. I have been told that by many people that I've worked with. Like, never let a good incident go to waste. My former VP, Eric Lipke, said that to me. Great guy. So a good to keep it brief on time, I'll give you a storytelling scenario here. Like, in identity, man, we need better identity governance. We need that. So you can't go like, hey, listen, we need better identity governance. I need X millions of dollars. They'll be like, okay, what does this mean? How am I going to get milestones? What am I going to get? What are my KPIs going to be? How do if I fund you, where do I pull it from? So many questions. So that in itself is its own conversation. But the way you frame up the story is, with our data, and IAM can now help control licensing, usage, and costs from both consumption, usage, and forecasting. So you become a business enabler. You'll never be a profit center, because that's just, unless you're a consumer. If you're in workforce, that ain't gonna happen. And if it is, let me know, because I'd love to be wrong on this one, and I could help. You could help me tell a story or two. I'd be happy with that. Another one is onboarding gets seamless and faster with context and real-time events. We can go from weeks to minutes or even hours, saving costs and addressing end user frustrations with access, because everyone knows, join a new company that's bigger, I'll see you in a week. Laptop will be, mailed to you. You're like, oh,
it's in the mail.
I'll be here eventually. Then you're like, oh, can you just let this control go for this guy you just joined? You need to get him going. Then you open up something you shouldn't open up. Then you have problems there. So the storytelling is very much a means to an end. And I think when you look at it from at your IAM ecosystem or your IAM ecosystem or a platform as a business enabler and a security enabler, it changes things. The key here is business cases and value and delivering the value. Can you implement continuous identity in 3 weeks? No. Could you do it in a year? Yeah, that's in facets of it. But ask yourself in the mirror, what do you get for that? Oh, you get a data lake. Great. What does that mean? Mm-hmm. Oh, I can now share this with customers that say, do you ever wonder who is accessing your application? Not who person, but like what devices, what operating systems, what user agents, what browsers, and from where? Yeah, maybe so. Cool. Here's this data. Help the product owners of those systems make effective business decisions based on your data that you just have to correlate anyways for security needs. It's a very bad way to think about it, but like, you have to use your customers' use cases to fund what you want to do, to build what you want. And it isn't being shady or underhanded. It's just more of thinking like a business professional versus an identity nerd, which was very hard for me to figure out. Like many moons ago, I was like, oh, gotta play the game. You have to.
Yeah. You talked a lot about sort of discovery, metrics, context. How is the work that you're doing with the Shared Signals Working Group for OpenID Foundation helping to solve for that or drive that, or maybe tell us a little bit more about that group?
So I think it's a little bit too initial to say, how are you going to go from business cases that get funded to actually SSF? But I think what you can get with SSF, I think is what you're asking more is what we're trying to solve there. And I think there is a parallel to both things. Okay. And it's just a matter of how do you orchestrate data? How do you share data? And it gets down to like, I mean, sounds crazy, but the whole purpose of the Shared Zones framework is to make it easy for companies to share security events. But more so, it's aiming to be an identity standard that allows, call it security or identity solutions or systems, to share and consume interoperable events in real time, which is where you really want to go with that, with the whole up level of what you just asked me. How can I send a system a deactivation event that says remove Sean's account because he's no longer a whatever I am at a company? I'm now like chief chill officer. So I don't need access to these 20 systems anymore. I need access to like 4. Yeah. So SSF at its core will allow you to interop and share, right? So what it also does there too is it reduces time to detect, respond, and remediate to any kind of events. Something I'm really big on, and so is Gail from OpenID Foundation. Is it's a trust framework. That's what it's really getting to. So there's, aside from security, there's 2 things that I think are, I don't want to say are overlooked, but underutilized. There's work that's being done in IETF with a SCIM profile for security event tokens. A lot of words there, now known as SCIM events, to make this easier to talk about. So Mike Kaiser and Jen Schreiber are working on that, along with a few others that really are aimed at changing provisioning and access. If you actually go read that, and I'll get you the link to that.
Yeah, please.
It really pushes the narrative on shared signals framework as CAPE and risk. There's a third type there, which is called provisioning. We're going to call it SCIM. Mm-hmm. It works at scale. It does. I've heard from many companies that they're starting to actually get traction into it, and it's really starting to change the way traditional SCIM works. And the last thing I'd harp on with shared signals is scalable trust. So paint a scenario where you have all your systems talking finally. They can now coordinate actions or events in milliseconds, and that's a big win for zero trust architectures. Not the buzzword zero trust, but like this is one piece of a zero trust architecture, not the whole enchilada. But it is really big for zero trust architecture at enterprise scale. That way, if you literally can just emit one event that says session revoke, and I can go to the network layer, the app layer, the data layer, and provision and deactivate, that makes your logic and your policy centralized to say, when Sean leaves the company or when Sean looks anomalous, do these 400 things. You have one place to audit, and it fans out to all those things. That is ideal nirvana state.
I gather the technical nature in a lot of these concepts, but I do think it still supports a lot of the business cases and the storytelling you were describing, because it's almost like you build from this foundational level in order to be able to tell those stories that executives or even board levels are asking for. But to continue down with shared signals, we talked a little bit about CAPE, continuous access evaluation, now profile, risk, and SCIM. How is all of that enabling identity systems to really work at machine speed? And I don't know that that's something that you're necessarily talking about in those words, maybe to the business owners, where you have to tell that story, but it's probably supportive of those.
It is, and it's very much like engineering brain, business brain. You get the occasional few that can speak both. So, like I was saying before, shared signals framework, SSF for shorthand, at its core, it is the backbone of how systems can exchange information asynchronously. I did a talk, how many years ago was it? Was it 2022? I don't remember when. Sharing is caring. It was a talk at Denver's on shared signals framework, before it was like mainstream, right?
Yeah.
It allows for automated decisioning via policy enforcement. Like you can do session termination or step up off without human involvement, all driven via policies or rules on your prospective IDPs or systems. The next big thing to work at machine speed, webhooks and streams. Anybody knows about streaming? Not like Disney Plus, but like streams or webhooks. It allows you to send push events that can be honored and shared instantaneously without polling. It does support both polling and push, but push gives you the real-time nature. This is a kind of I don't want to say a stretch, but if we all speak the same language, shared signals, if you will, that's interoperable and vendor neutral, it gives you the schema to reduce the need to go back and call proprietary APIs to do something. That's kind of big, because if I got to say, hey, Dustin, here's the thing, you're like, okay, Sean, here's my thing. I'm like, oh, it's another thing. I got to implement more work. Or I'm like, if you adhere to the standard, it's like Dustin and Sean can now share events, right? It's easier that way.
Yeah.
So borrowing from a continuous identity concept in my presentation at Identiverse, this is where the analogy will make sense now that we talked about earlier. Your IAM systems become appliances to do essentially what you tell them to do. You will be prescriptive. Washing machine, wash clothes, microwave, nuke food, refrigerator, store the meat that we got from a restaurant, or oven, cook the bacon, right? It sounds very cliche, but it's what it's boiling down to. And that's a way you can actually extend and embrace your existing investments, not having to be like, I gotta go buy another thing for a lot of $1 million, versus no, this is stitching them all together into the fabric to where your appliances hang off the fabric. So at machine speed, CAPE and risk, to be very crisp on this, you said what CAPE stands for. It says in the name, continuous evaluation, not just a login time. You're always evaluating, right? Now, it won't do it for you, the logic, but it can help you interop. But the logic is going to have to be, there's too many vendors out there. You can build your own stuff to do some kind of evaluation engine or some rules engine. Risk, interesting. That's focusing more on lateral movement. So let's take compromised accounts as an example. Because no one ever uses the same password for different systems. Never. No one ever does that, right?
No.
Nope. Doesn't happen. So at machine scale, if I know Sean was compromised and I can advertise that, I can go shut down the threat actor from going laterally, because they don't do it by this anymore. They do it with AI or machine workflows. Those are some examples. Not all of them, but some.
Machine speed seems to be baked in. It's a little bit of a leading question, I guess. But when we're talking about this faster than speed of human, SSF and all the components seem to be really tightly aligned there. And some of the pieces you brought up reminded me of other conversations we have. Ian Glazer was our first guest here, not ghost, it's Halloween time. And we talked a little bit about what is continuous identity, just the basics. And I know he talks about the standard as sort of this, let's get everybody a phone. It's a connect. How do we connect everybody, all the security? How do we just get people a phone so that they can connect up if and when they need to? So that sort of neutral or common, interoperability. But you gave us some examples. I want to see if I can push you a little bit to get an actual practical example where all this kind of takes place. So let's say something happens, security event. I don't know what it is, compromised credentials or some sort of suspicious behavior, whatever. How does shared signals help there with the flow of information through the security system into the enterprise's identity ecosystem and in real time? Like, what does that look like?
So there's many ways to approach this, and I'm going to be pretty careful and crisp on a few things. It doesn't. You can't just say by implementing shared signals, I've solved world hunger. That's more of the transport. You have to assume you have a lot of detective controls on the left hand side, and on the right hand side you have adoption at your company or companies to say this is how we communicate. So if we're assuming that, if you all speak the same language, it's a scaling issue. So it's in a good way. It's orders of magnitude. So identifying systems, let's say your ITDR platform says, anomalous, this isn't Dustin from Turkey. We know this for a fact. They send an event out to your IDP. IDP says, I'm going to clear your session, right? Another thing could be like, well, let's also just deactivate all of Dustin's access. Calls your IGA platform. Cool. Well, probably shouldn't be able to get into PAM systems or Vault of some sorts. All right, call that remove your access. Maybe that's with your IGA platform, or it's separate. The key takeaway to this is you issue one token, one security event token that says session revoked for Dustin. N number of systems can honor that token and take action. But the scale of that could be also collaboration platforms. So I'll pick the big one, Microsoft 365. send that to them. You may have to do some work to call underlying proprietary APIs, but at least still you can have something that you can build or buy, take your pick, where you would translate a shared signal event into a proprietary API. There's a thing that's called an event hub. There's ways to do that as well. But I can, there's so many more to talk about, but the other piece too is that's being prescriptive, saying take action. But then you also have to work with your security teams if you're not all part of one organization, but let your security teams know that we found this and did this thing. So you can send it to your SIM and let your security team or your SOC to know, here's a leading indicator about this person with some information. So they can be like, go start running runbooks or go kick off automation flows. Because again, sharing is caring. So it's a two-way street. It's informational, and I'm going to say prescriptive, but it doesn't have to be. It could be informational and like you might want to go do this, but that's up to how you implement it. Your call. The spec is very open about that. And it's not saying thou must, it's should.
Yeah, that's a good point. I've heard Avol say this in sessions and both on panels and here on our continuous identity sessions about the standard by nature doesn't take action. It's informational. It informs you, and then you can decide what action you want to take. What is the reality right now? Like, who's adopting this? Are people adopting this? Are they implementing it? Is it still early days? Like, where are we in the timeline?
I think we're in. I don't want to say explosive growth because Avol will probably laugh at me, but in a good way. Is growing. It's we're not in the, this is an idea anymore. It's more like, let's go. There's market penetration, there's vendor penetration. Okta, Apple have it in there. More recently, Google announced it too. In the working group, there's a lot more companies showing up and participating as well. It's absolutely crazy. The last interop Authenticate, companies are all on board. They're getting on with this. I mean, at Navigate, SailPoint announced the inclusion of shared signals in their IGA platform, which is huge. So we're in adoption and growth, in my opinion, right now, but more about, is it a thing? I think going to V1 helped a ton, but growth. I wouldn't say parabolic, but I'd say we're at least linear right
now. So what if, I'm an interested party. I watch this, I'm following the blogs, et cetera. And I'm going, gosh, I want to get started. I want to learn more. What's a good first step or a couple of anywhere someone could go to really understand more and leverage the standard?
I take credit cards, cash, and check. Joking. One of the great resources to learn from is cape.dev. That's CAEP.dev, and we'll share that in the notes. I have posted and will continue to post a lot of Identiverse presentations on my website, seanidentity.com. If you're an ID Pro member, there are so many Slack channels for this. You have access to a ton of smart people there as well too. And the last shameless plug, if I don't do it, I would get reprimanded. Join the working group, an open ID, and we'll provide the link as well too. Even if it's just to listen, we've had 4 new companies join up since Authenticate. And that's huge.
Wow.
That are actively participating and helping and throwing out use cases that are like, man, never thought of that. And like, okay, yeah, it's there already, which is always good and bad, right? No shortage of work.
A couple of weeks since Authenticate. And
yeah,
it's always interesting when you get these types of technologies in the hands of others, and they, whether it be customers or partners or vendors or whatever, and they start coming up with new use cases on their own that like you said, you couldn't even get to just yet. We'll start to wind down with Sean O'Dell here. But let's talk a little bit more about continuous identity, about leveraging it, about evolving, about rather than just leaning into the standards. If I'm a leader of identity at an organization, at enterprise, hey, you've convinced me. I need to get there. Where do I even start? Like, what's the first step? Like you said, I can't just go to the store and I'm going to buy continuous identity. So what's the first step to get going with?
Yeah, you want to pick your biggest thing and go all in. Don't do that at all. No. Like we talked about it at Identiverse, and it's a broken record, and I think Ian has said it, and Andrew Cameron has said it. I think even Mike Kaiser on stage has said it a few times, is start small and pick the areas where you have the most need, whether it be in security, in provisioning and access. Start uber small. If it's the littlest thing, and I want to pick on something specific, if you have really good endpoint detection, like uber good, hook that up to your IDP and kill sessions. Basic 101, easy. Then you can build from that story, build that use case, build those metrics, say, look at how awesome we're doing. Now next step. It's like layering of an onion. Peel it off layer by layer. How do you eat an elephant? One piece at a time.
Mm-hmm.
But you have to start small and pick the areas that you have the most business need. Like if you're in a provisioning shop where access is slow, start there. Hopefully no one's in this position, but if you're bleeding security issues, that's where I would start. But yeah, start small. And like I talked about earlier, I'll have the zero standing privilege talk I had at Identiverse there, and it gives a very concrete, easy example on like how do you move towards zero standing privilege to like Active Directory or cloud providers. It's very basic. You would be surprised. The tech is easy. The process is what is the journey. Convincing people that they don't get access to their toys, it's safer, and doing that seamless. That is 90% of the battle. The rest of it's pretty much like it's done. Have a conversation.
Wow. I feel like we could go on and on, but given the time, we might have to have a part 2 at some point. But I'm just going to start wrapping us up, Sean. You've talked a little bit about some of the presentations and blogs and such and areas where you've been live in real life. Is there anywhere you'll be presenting or attending soon where listeners and viewers can see you in 3 dimensions?
Yeah, I'm probably going to be at Identiverse in DC, reprising the keynote I did with Andrew at Identiverse in Vegas. I'm still seeing about some approvals for that. And I'm going to be on a panel at Gartner IAM. It's a cybersecurity panel on identity verification. But those are the 2 big ones next. But I know Identiverse 2026 opened up for call for presenters, so I will be probably submitting too many that I'm going to regret submitting for, but I'll keep doing it.
Great. Yeah, look forward to seeing you there. Boiling it down here, if someone watched this session and they thought, you know what, I've got one thing I can implement next week, what would you tell them to focus on?
Make it the smallest, most achievable thing with metrics to show the value that you have almost total control over. If you have to rely on other teams to help you implement this or have buy-in, it's a lot harder. But if you have total control over it and can automate it with the continuous or contextual aspects, I would do it. So good example is crowdsource your own food. So if you have your own access to your own internal IAM tools, try a ZSP model or try a subset of provisioning to where it's only going to target your organizational unit or your cost center or who you report to. Try it out small, figure the kinks out, and then grow it. Because if you do small, you're going to make mistakes and you're going to fall down many times. But if you do it at a company, you will be secure. No one can log in and use the systems, but that would not be a good thing.
That's secure.
It is.
Yeah, there's I appreciate the good bit of sort of, back to it's littered throughout this talk that we've had, this technical and business mindset or acumen overlaying. But to wrap us up, we always end on a question, less technical, less, sort of identity focused. We're asking every guest on the show, in the spirit of continuousness, continually evolving, what is something that you're working on or that you do continuously? It could be work related. It could just be a skill or hobby or something personal about yourself that you're willing to share.
Keeping my 3-year-old from pushing over my 1-year-old learning to walk and teaching my 1-year-old to learn to walk is a back-breaking battle. For those of you who have kids, you know what I'm talking about. Watching her walk is like the coolest thing ever. Like hour ago, I went downstairs and I was just like handlebar, she went grab on. Like, so exciting. But that is always do it. It went from guiding her on her walker to holding her hips. And now she's just like the Frankenstein. She wobbles. Now you for goals, you back up a little bit. You back up a little bit more. And now she can take like 30 steps and on tile. A lot of fun to worry about when she bangs her head.
Yeah, that's a high level of introduction, going right to the tile, not cushy shag carpeting first.
Only upstairs.
Oh, well, thanks again, Sean Odell, and thanks to everyone who joined us today and took time to learn more about continuous identity, how to approach it, the shared signals framework, where to learn more about it. Speaking of, just a little reminder, all of these sessions are recorded and available at signal.ai and on our YouTube channel. You can subscribe at signal.ai, get details about all the upcoming episodes. You'll also find a lot of these resource links and articles that we mentioned with Sean in the follow-up email. Want to make sure that you can access those. So please subscribe so you have easy access to all of those. And next time we'll have the same channels, next level insights. The next Signal continuous identity session is coming soon. Until then, keep making identity work better and more